Hello, I'm having problem. Hello, I'm having problems with the technical side of this. I didn't, uh, not quite sure what to do. So, uh, if you're if you have a little thumbnail that says "Moms call in" and we have to go back to home economics, you're over. Scoot over here. Well, to get started, it's unusual to figure out that if you're try to build a society that's normal and well adjusted, it's actually a religious concept. It's not a natural thing at all. And so to insist that a person, uh, that these thoughts that have to do with fear and sex and ignorance and violence are to straighten himself out emotionally, to be a good husband and then a good father, and to be a good wife and then a good mother. And it spills into home economics. It's not a natural thing at all. And that's where you get God and country come from. And to that end, people they threw that out in the 1970s. They pushed us into a consumption society, is what it's called. And now we're paying a horrible price for it. And if you're a gal, you find yourself trying to put your children in a daycare center so you can go off and work all day long to try and come up with money to watch somebody else raise your child. You're doing that because the women's liberation movement insisted you do that in the 1970s. What did they do? Well, they moved into the foothills, separated the idea of the people doing the consuming from the people doing all the producing. They moved into the foothills and became the upper class in a peasant to property class society. It's the women's liberation movement. If you have a sense of category, you realize that's also the Black Civil Rights Movement. That's also uh, the we need a name for it. The white guys that cashed in on everything, get into all the gold and real estate they can, and hire somebody else to do all the jobs they don't want to do. And so the whole idea is to try and gather guys and gals together who will stand up to this stuff. And if you call it life is just a question of economics, well, life is just a question of home economics. And so if we can start finding gals who will call in and saying, this is where I live. I live in Boston or St. Louis or LA. And this is the budget I would need if I was to run a household, if I had a 3-bedroom brick house and I had 2.2 children and a hubby to take care of. How much are the groceries? How much is clothing? How much is piano lessons for the children and uh, and tennis lessons for you? Because in this world, the same people do the producing, do the consuming. It's kind of just to get something out. The shop manual definition of mental illness is the normal taken into the abnormal. It's a shop manual definition from a cold to the flu to pneumonia. Both the Catholic and the atheist say that. The Catholic will turn around, or the priests will turn around and say, hold on, go backwards from pneumonia back to the cold and to being normal. Normal is normal, but not good enough. And there's one easy way to see that. You sit down, fantasize about the gals until you become sexually aroused if you're a young man. Then open your eyes, look around the room, and do it again. Only this time you're fantasizing about actually getting the gal pregnant. And there you go. With a snap of a finger, you'll see what original sin is. The idea that those very powerful thoughts in your mind, to coincide them with actually creating life, getting a gal pregnant, is not a natural thing at all. You have to be taught that. And you have to walk down that road. If you do, and you find a gal, if you're a gal, you start a family, uh, then it turns into what's called home economics. There's a young couple viewed as one person, and so picture a 3-bedroom brick house from the 1950s in the United States, and let's go through the drill. She's running the household, and he's going out and working in the furniture factory. And they have a house. A house is the opposite of poverty. If you ask what poverty is, well, what is not poverty? And in a shop manual fashion, that's a detached house. It's a living room to live in, a bedroom, a dining room, and a kitchen to support the dining room. a garage with a big American car in it. And that's as opposed to communist housing projects or apartments. Communist housing projects and apartments, you can consider them the same thing. And don't stop there. There's the class of intelligentsia up here, the communist intelligentsia who live very high up the hog, and you go live in housing projects. And the people who own the apartments, they live very high up the hog, and you're a peon, spending your life paying rent to them. And they do all the consuming. They don't go out and build anything. They simply consume everything. And that's a very good way of looking at it. Let's go back over here. There's that house, and go off to the side, start with farming and mining, then above that, manufacturing, above that, wholesale, retail, and repair, above that, retirement, education, and recreation. And doctors and lawyers form a kind of ladder that holds it all together. And the Catholic priest is what causes it to come into being to begin with. This comes out of popes and monks and monasteries. The truth of the truth, the decent of the decent, and then the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, that computer cloud of electrons that you hold as faith. That's what faith is. If you hold that as faith, then you maximize benefits and maximize utilities by straightening yourself up emotionally, willing the good of another person, putting somebody into their own business, and wonderful things start to happen. You start to have a huge middle class. They threw all that out in the 1970s, and they spent their life having all the sex and drugs they could get their hands on, being professional consumers. And within that, you could call them Harry the hippie, or you can call them Al the Afro, you could call them Donna the feminist. It doesn't make any difference. You're paying a horrible price for it, and you just have to get together and do something about it. So it's that we actually can make some suggestions here. It's a 4-step process. The first step is to get people, is to come up with a course, actually, a lesson plan that'll teach you first how to be normal and well-adjusted, and then how to stand up to a cheap pimp. In this society, in the society of the classic battle of good and evil, the priest is on one side, and the pimp's on the other. The priest says, say what you mean what you say, everything else comes from evil. And then there's a line, a little flip-flop, not the other side, and there's a pimp. And the pimp knows how to hustle, con, manipulate, and intimidate people. And in this society, that makes him the bad guy. And that's not true in the United States at the moment. Everybody thinks it is. You call Donald Trump just won the election a few years back. And what did he do that was so special that makes him so popular? He stood up to a bum's rush. He stood up to people who hustle. And as a matter of fact, he did it on his own. He broke a fundamental rule of physics, of logic. You can't stand up to a bum's rush by yourself. You have to have a third person do it for you. And all these tricks that they pull on him and on the United States, including, well, violence. And so somebody has to stand up to this stuff. And then you have to turn around and say something else. Okay, well, look, they're the bad guys. Over here are the good guys. What do you fight for? You have to fight for something. And you're going to get mad, but what you fight for is Catholicism. The Pope holds the moral high ground. That's the job, and that's the religious stuff in our society. We weren't officially Catholic, but we were officially Yanks. And lo and behold, you couldn't be officially a Yank without being officially Catholic. And look at they did have a revolution. It did culminate in the 1970s. And they did, you throw out being normal and well-adjusted. They had the sexual revolution. They threw out the idea of the decent of the decent. They made it okay to make money by causing other people to have to work more hours. And they threw out God. They said there would be no religion in government. If you repeat that a few times, you realize that they do have a religion. We do live in a religious government. We live in the stereotypical, straight out of the scholastic philosophy books definition of a satanic church. The definition of evil is a complete absence of that. And well, it's all true. You just look around and in a shop manual fashion, all the people will hustle, con, manipulate. They have no love in them. They're not guilty of anything because they have no guilt in them. And the cause of it all is people starve in the streets. And there's even a group that pushed us into consumption society just so we would hit bottom. Our society would be destroyed, and they come in and take over. And there's a little ladder that gets formed there. That's enough of that. Go back over here. Look at all you're past the point of tears where you don't know, just have no clue what you're going to do. It's not going to work out. You have children, you try and put your children in daycare, you have to pay rent. Remember something over here, we don't pay rent. You don't, in home economics, you don't rent property to other people. You don't rent property from other people. You make money by subsidiary, by putting somebody else in their own house. And that hotshot architect will never be as rich as the guys who build apartments and collect rent and live in the foothills. But they're the bad guys. You get those guys out of there. And the architect that puts you in your own house, he'll be living in a doctor and lawyer's neighborhood, and life goes on, and they should actually. And that distinction, that difference in wealth is a religious difference. They maximize benefits and maximize utilities by trying to get to heaven after you die. Years ago, I made a big deal of trying to just hang around people to like the undercover cop and try and figure out who they were. I actually went and enrolled in classes in the physics department over here at the U of A. I found out a few things. That one of the things you find out, even though as a graduate of the place, is that you run across the Catholic Church. The Vatican has a telescope here at the University of Arizona. And some of the physicists were Catholic priests. And after being taught 3 blocks over in the do-gooder side of the campus that you couldn't say God existed and that sort of thing, you knew that something was amiss. I can come up with a better example. At the time, lawyers had a totem pole, and at the very bottom of their totem pole was Perry Mason, the criminal trial attorneys and the prosecutors. They made horrible pay. And at the other end were real estate attorneys and tax attorneys and one other, I forget. And they made about 3.5 times more money. And so you look at them and say, okay, well, the criminal trial attorneys and the prosecutors were considered not very bright. That's not quite the right word. Naive might be a better word. And so they all went through law school, and at the time they had to take 3 ungodly tests. And so, they must know something. And so you try and figure out what makes these guys naive and not bright. And I'm walking, and then it finally dawns on you. The answer is the disposition of defending the poor and the oppressed. They put a terribly negative value on that disposition. Being courageous, brave, and strong, kind, compassionate, and just, and that sort of thing. At the other end, the real estate attorneys and tax attorneys, stockbroking attorneys, they couldn't care less. They weren't guilty of anything. They had no guilt in them. They had no empathy in them. They didn't think twice about cashing in on everything. Once you build up a society, it's very easy to cash in on it all. They could buy a house and then use the down payment of the house to buy a duplex, and then get you renting property from them, getting you to pay their mortgage, and they can expand on that. And it'll just get worse and worse and worse. Actually has a name. It's called the Lazy V. And as an example, here in Tucson, somebody came in and bought close to 1,000 houses, turned it into rental property. And you know what happened? The prices of houses go up. People that normally could be able to afford a house now have to rent. And these guys are living high up the hog. That's treason in the United States. Remember, it's what we had the Revolutionary War against. A bunch of characters from not the good guys from Great Britain that wore shirts with fluffy cuffs and did nothing but consume, while all the other Brits that came out and invented everything and built everything were pushed out of society. Well, I'm hoping somebody will start hearing this. I'll try and be on Saturdays at 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock New York time, and 12 o'clock on Sundays at New York time. And I'm hoping somebody will pass the word. I'm hoping you'll be some gals who'll start calling in and saying, okay, this is what I need to get people out of poverty. I live in Chicago, I live in Tollsbury, England, or in LA. I need a house. This is a house. This will do it good enough. I'm going to convert these housing projects back into something livable. Okay, this is what I need: a living room this big, a bedroom that's 10 by 12 feet for 2 boys and 2 girls. And this is the budget I need. Now, and you ask the guys, how many hours you have to work in order to come up with that? And if you take that seriously, you can start to do some serious things with it. Okay, so I guess I kind of messed up for some reason the computer here. And so I hope to see you next Saturday at 4 o'clock, at 6 o'clock New York time in the evening, and next Sunday at 12 o'clock New York time in the evening. And so please pass the word and please call in, and we'll get you standing up to all this stuff.